Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video we'll be taking a look at some exploding rats and some other proxy models for the Cyclops Demolition Vehicle. My Astra Militarum 6,000 point army is coming along nicely now, and I've almost finished building everything, but I do want to do some proxies for the Cyclops Demolition Vehicle. This is a great little model. We'll have a look at the stats in a minute, and then we'll also go through some models I've picked up that are going to work just perfectly for it, but I also want to make some for the Catachans that are a little bit different, using some exploding rats from ANVIL Industry. I think the Cyclops Demolition Vehicle is going to be a real fun unit to add to the army, and you can even transport it in one of the Chimeras. It's quite a small model though. I'll go through the dimensions later on, and I didn't want to pay £17.50 just for one of these, and I also wanted to get like 3 because I thought that would be cool to put 3 on the battlefield, so it was going to be quite expensive for what really is a small and simple model. Most of the games I'll only be using 1 though, and the power level is 3, going to cost you 50 points, but it's got some really interesting stats. It's got a nice movement 10, weapon skill 6+, but you're not really using it for that. The ballistic skill is 4+, strength 4, toughness is 6, so it can take a few hits. It's got 4 wounds, you'll make 1 attack with it, leadership is 10, and the save is 3, and for the base you use the size of the model. The interesting thing about this unit is that the vehicle itself is the weapon. It's a Cyclops Demolition Charge, and it's got a range of 6 inch, it's heavy 2d6, strength 9, AP -2, it's going to do D3 damage, and it's got the blast ability. This is going to do some serious damage if you can get it amongst a unit with a lot of fighters in it. And so it's got some abilities. One's the demolition vehicle, so the bearer can be selected to shoot if it's within engagement range of enemy units and can make attacks with its demolition charge when doing so. And when you select this unit to shoot, you must target and resolve attacks against every other visible unit within range, and that includes the friendly units too, and even if those units are with engagement range of models from a unit from the opposing side. And then after this unit shoots with the demolition charge, it's completely destroyed and it cannot control objective markers or perform actions. So this is going to do a load of damage if you can get it in the middle of like a real lot of different units, but be warned, you could take out some of your friendly units too. As I mentioned earlier, you can put this in transport vehicles as well, and you treat it as an infantry model, but it does take the space of 6 models. So you could put it in the Chimera and still have a small unit of the guard in there too. If the vehicle is destroyed before it lets off the demolition charge, then it is destroyed like another vehicle would be, and you roll 1d6 before removing it from play. A little bit different here though, because on a 5+ it explodes, and each unit within 6 inch will suffer D3 mortal wounds. You can also use some different stratagems with it, like load, fire, reload, relentless, crush them, jury rigging, defensive gunners. These are all suited to this unit. So for £17.50 you can get the Cyclops Demolition Vehicle from Forge World, but if you want to save some money and get more of these, here's a great way you can do it. I did a quick search and found these on Etsy, and I'll put a link in the description below, and I got all these for £5.50 each, so for less than the price of 1 demolition vehicle I got 3, and they're a little bit different in design, but I think I prefer these designs, and the details are really nice, but I wasn't happy with this red plastic that it came in. I just thought it looked quite cheap. It looked like more of like a little toy than anything. There was no building required. But once I sprayed it though, I was really happy with it. It changed it completely. So although I was put off at first by this red transparent plastic, once it's sprayed, it looks really good. And here it is all primed with some standard Mechanicus grey, and so yeah, completely transforms it now. It looks a lot better. So yeah, don't be put off by the red at first, because once you prime it, it's going to look really nice. I wanted to make sure this would be the right size, so it definitely is. I've looked online and got the best measurements I can for the Cyclops, and this certainly fits it just right. So the volume of it is going to be perfect. The width, height and everything is going to fit in. So if you're using this to proxy it exactly, then you're going to be fine. And you know, for getting things like visibility and stuff, it's not going to be affected. So it's a really good proxy for the original from Forge World. And the height was very important, so I wanted to really make sure it was the right height as well. And this is going to come into play when I show you the exploding rats a little later on. There's also some other options at ANVIL Industry, like this large track platform. They've got a tractor as well, so this one looks a little bit bigger, so this might be a better match. And then the small track platform. Now this might be a little bit too small, so you're going to have to buy a few of these and be creative in how you base them. But those ones I picked up from Etsy are just going to work straight away with no basing required. And you're going to save £17.50, get 3 for the price of 1, or just buy 1 for £5.50. These are going to be great for the Cadians and even the Tempesta Scions, but I wanted to do something a little bit different for my Catachan regiment. And so I picked up some rats from ANVIL Industry, and these are really cool little models. And so for the rest of the video, I'll just show you how I've built them to take up the space, the same amount of volume as the Cyclops Demolition Vehicle, and I can proxy these as the jungle version. So I think that's going to be really fun, real quirky, and fit in with the vibe of the army I'm building. So I took some sprue, and this is going to form the base for these to go on. And here's the little rats here ready to go. And then I've got some dried out sticks that I just put in the oven to dry out. And I've got some little rocks as well that did the same thing, just cleaned them, dried them in the oven. I might not use them, but they're there if I need them. And then I've got some cork mat, and I took this from just a table cork mat, and then you can rip it up and use that to give some extra height. Got some little thin piece of plastic here, taken from a cupcake case holder. And the first step is to cut that sprue to make sure it's the right size and the same length and width as a tank. So I just snip it off, and then I trim off all the little pieces from that sprue, and then what I'll do is I'll file those down, use my knife just to scrape along to make sure it's all smooth, and then I'll glue a little piece on the end. Next I cut some of this thin plastic into a little sheet, and that's going to be exactly the same size as that rectangle I've made with the sprue pieces, so just use it as a guide and cut that off. A bit super glue all the way around, and then I'll glue that plastic rectangle onto the top, and that's going to make a nice solid base for the piece. Then I want to make sure that this gets the height of this Cyclops Demolition Vehicle. So I've got some cork and sticks ready to go, and then there's little rats as well. So all that's going to form the height. But first I need to make sure this cork is the right size. So I just use my little base as a template and then pick away that cork so it's nice and rugged. Then I glue that on with some super glue. I'm not being shy here, putting quite a lot. Glue that in place. And I've got one of the fat twigs, which is going to be the main piece, and I'm just trimming that up a little bit. So this is going to be like a fallen tree in the jungle, and so snip that off, and that's going to fit just nicely along there. I'll trim the bottom with my knife and give it a little file as well. Make sure it's nice and flat so it's going to stick really well. And then I'll use that bit I trimmed off as well, because that's going to add some nice height as well to the whole piece. A little bit of cork underneath to raise that up, and then I'll just glue everything onto it. Lots of glue, make sure it's nice and strong. And then by the time we put the rats on top of this, that we're going to have a nice amount of height, very similar to the Cyclops vehicle, and a nice amount of volume on the rectangular base as well. And here we go. So that's the main bit done. You can see it matches up with the height there. And we just want to get the rats glued on so they're up to about the same height as that little viewing port on the top. So I'm just going to glue them in place. I'm dry fitting it first to get an idea of what rats look better in each position. And then just a little bit of super glue and then stick them on in place. And these are all built already, just trim them off the sprue, bit of glue, and then that's going to hold it nicely on there. And I'm putting it in such a position so that I can paint them nice and easily once it's all primed. And there's all the 4 rats on there, looking awesome, taking up a nice space, loads of character. It looks like you've got the one at the back shouting orders to the others as they scamper and scurry up along the log there to jump onto the enemy and explode. Let's do a side-by-side with the Cyclops vehicle too, and you can see the dimensions fit really nicely, and so that's going to work as a really great proxy and add loads of character to the army. When I get this primed and painted, I'll then move on to do the base with a little bit more detail. So I'll use some Vallejo earth texture. I've got some mud coming, so I'll probably go to the mud. I've got some little flocking here, and I'll put little bits, not too much, because I want that mud to come through. And then I'll use some of this awesome gamer grass products, some grass, some jungle, flowers and things, and then also some of these brilliant elephant ears. These will add to the density and give it that jungle feel. There we go, there's 2 fun and pretty cheap proxies for the awesome Cyclops Demolition Vehicle. It's going to be fun playing these with the Cadians and with the Catachans, but I think having those rats and building that jungle mini diorama for them to crawl on and move across the battlefield, I think will be really fun. And I won't be using these rats in a chimera or anything, so I really like the idea of them just being part of the jungle environment and moving around the battlefield before they blow up. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I also hope it gave you some ideas that you can use in your army just to mix things up a bit and use some fun, cheap proxies for the models you'd like to play. With so many great companies out there like ANVIL Industry making fun models and accessories, it's really good to be able to then include them in your builds. I'll put a link to ANVIL Industry in the description below, and if you follow it, you can save 10% on whatever you buy. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked it, please hit the like button, subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to join me next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'd like to say a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters who make these daily videos possible, and if you're interested in joining the community, it'd be awesome to see you there, and I'll put a link for that in the description down below.